Hello and welcome to my home. My name is Sara and I'm acting principal cellist of the Lancaster Symphony Orchestra. I think that this project of making videos is a wonderful way for the musicians of the orchestra to connect with the community. Right now, more than ever, we need to think of ways that we can continue to foster and create relationships. And it's important to think outside the box, and I found this very challenging and a meaningful project to be involved in. I look forward to seeing the submissions and videos that my colleagues come up with in the next few weeks. A little bit of my background: I was born in Canada and lived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. As a child, I started playing the cello at the age of 8. My parents would take me to Saskatoon Symphony Orchestra concerts, and I think it was there that I saw a solo cellist, and I just was sort of in awe of the size of the instrument, really. But it was enough that I started playing. In the next 9 years, I think I counted, I had 7 teachers, and the reason is that Saskatoon was a place that musicians would come to who were interested in orchestral careers, so that Saskatoon Symphony was more or less a stepping stone orchestra for them. So they would win the principal jobs, stay for a year, maybe 2, and then move on. And so I didn't really have continuity as far as instruction on the instrument until I was 16. At that point, I moved to the west coast of Canada and studied at the Victoria Conservatory of Music with James Hunter, who was a renowned pedagogue, musician. He was really the one that was able to give me the foundation and grounding that I needed, and to teach me about the musical and expressive potential of the instrument. From Victoria, I traveled to New Brunswick, New Jersey, and studied with Bernard Greenhouse, finished my undergraduate degree in cello performance with both Greenhouse and Sara Nelsova. And then I did my master's with Timothy Eddy in Manhattan. I've lived in Lancaster since 1993. I feel I have strong roots and connections with the community. I've raised 3 children here. And so the community is one that I'm very fond of, and I feel that as a community of this size, it's remarkable how many arts organizations we have, and I'm very, very proud to be part of the Lancaster Symphony. I want to take a second to show you up close the instrument that I play on. This is a cello made by Eugenio Degani. It was made in 1880s, considered modern Italian instrument, which of course is a relative term. But it just has some very, very beautiful markings, and sort of the way the varnish has settled makes a very unique appearance on the front and the back of the instrument. I've had this cello for about 20 years, and life without it is pretty much unimaginable. As musicians, I think we become extremely connected to our instruments. especially when we find one that really suits us. And I feel like this cello is a part of me that would be very, very difficult to part with. The role of the cello in the orchestra is an interesting topic. I think that, the cello can cover the entire range of the human voice. So we are often in sort of cahoots, if you will, with the other bass instruments in the orchestra, where we're responsible for sort of laying the foundation, and where we exercise quite a lot of influence and control in terms of rhythm and laying down the foundation for the more melodic instruments. But then the cello also has many opportunities in the orchestral literature to sing those very same melodies. And I think that's one of the things that I really love about the instrument, is just the versatility and different tone colors and sounds that you can make, and being able to switch from one role to the other in a concert situation. I feel very fortunate to be able to say that my major teachers were all, more or less icons in the cello pedagogy and performance world. I already mentioned James Hunter, who was hugely influential to me. Bernard Greenhouse, who was the cellist in the Beaux-Arts trio for over 30 years. Sara Nelsova, who was a wonderful soloist in her own right, had quite an amazing career. And Timothy Eddy, who was just a fabulous teacher and musician. I also had the fortune to study with Jano Starker and Anna Bilsma. And, I think it's our responsibility as students, if you're studying, that you really, really pay attention to what you're being told in lessons, what your teachers are telling you to work on. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about something that one of those cellists that I just mentioned expressed to me as being important for me to work on. I actually really like to practice. I like to spend the time problem solving and trying to, emerge from the practice room with something accomplished. And I think that as a young student, that's something that's hard to learn. It's just how to practice, and it's something that is an incredibly valuable tool. And you can learn how to practice at a very, very young age, I believe. And one other mentor that I want to mention is Stuart Nussin. He was principal bass of the London Symphony Orchestra for 15 years and chairman of their board. He retired from his life in Europe at just about the time that I went to Victoria, and he started a youth orchestra there, and he coached me weekly on orchestral excerpts. Even though he was a bass player, not my instrument, but his influence was lasting. And again, I keep a photo of him down where I practice, because it keeps me honest. So to wrap this time up, the selection that I performed for you was a David Popper etude, what we call in the music world an etude. It's a study. It's an exercise to challenge technique and get your technique where it needs to be. It's kind of like eating leafy green vegetables. But when I practice and when I have time to practice, I like to go back to the fundamentals. I like to go back to scales and etudes. And my book of Popper etudes is well dog-eared, because there's something about practicing these studies that I find very grounding. And after the Netflix binging at the beginning of this pandemic, after I got that out of my system, I started to go back to the cello and really work on the foundations of playing, and just really getting down to the nitty-gritty, and simplifying what needs to be done to stay in shape and be in shape as a cellist. And it occurs to me that, you know, the Lancaster Symphony, like any arts organization, is facing a very unusual situation, and it's going to present quite a challenge. We're going to be climbing up a pretty steep incline, and it occurs to me that we need to go back to looking at the fundamental, you know, the reason for the Lancaster Symphony, and what kind of attributes and you know, advantages there are to having such a wonderful group of musicians in Lancaster, and who have been a part of the Lancaster Symphony for many, many, many years. I think we need to look at the foundations of the connections that we have to make with the community, and together as a community and as orchestra musicians, we need to start problem solving and thinking outside the box, and being creative about how we move forward from this time. I look forward to playing on stage again, and in the meantime, I look forward to finding ways to find importance as a Lancaster Symphony Orchestra musician. Thank you.